Caitlin Clark has become a household name, redefining women's college basketball with an intensity and flair that's hard to ignore. Known for her ability to drain three-pointers from a seemingly impossible distance, she has not only raised the bar, but changed the way people talk about the sport. Her meteoric rise came with as much buzz as skepticism, and recently her clash with ESPN media brought an entirely new chapter to the narrative. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. At the center of this story is the brewing tension between Clark and the sports media giant. ESPN, long seen as the gatekeeper of sports news, commentary, and hype, was caught flat-footed when Clark refused to be molded by their well-worn playbook. ESPN's coverage often operates in a template, highlighting athletes as either heroes or villains, depending on what makes for the most compelling story. Caitlin Clark doesn't fit into those neat little boxes. She's not a character in a drama ESPN can easily control, and she's far too real for the polished narratives they prefer. So when the media giant tried to capture her raw talent and charm under their lens, they got exposed, plain and simple. Clark has a swagger about her game, but it's the kind that feels earned. She doesn't exude arrogance, rather she plays like someone who knows exactly how good she is, and she's not pretending otherwise. There's a truth to that confidence that is rare. ESPN, on the other hand, seems to love the theater of sports more than the actual play. They create rivalries where there are none, manufacture hype, and sometimes twist narratives to fit their agenda. In doing so, they often gloss over what actually matters: the skill, the sweat, and the moments on the court that define an athlete's career. But Clark isn't here for the storyline, she's here for the game, and that's where the clash really ignited. The network's attempts to spotlight Clark came across as out of touch. They treated her performances like any other, throwing her into segments that followed the same format they'd been using for years. Highlights set to dramatic music, voiceovers packed with hyperbole, and an exaggerated focus on rivalries that often felt forced. When Clark led Iowa to victory with her jaw-dropping three-point shots, ESPN's coverage veered into dramatics that felt hollow next to the simplicity of her brilliance. They were painting a picture that just didn't match the canvas in front of them. Clark's approach is rooted in an honesty the fans love. She doesn't try to be anything other than herself, and she plays like she's out there to have fun while dominating her opponents. It's a refreshing kind of leadership, one where she lifts her team not by words, but by doing exactly what she's best at, sinking buckets and delivering in-clutch moments. ESPN seemed unsure of how to handle that. Their focus was less on her skill and more on trying to insert her into a pre-existing storyline. The athlete they wanted was supposed to either be a darling of the sport or a controversial figure they could dissect, but Clark was neither. Fans noticed the disconnect. Social media erupted with comments pointing out how ESPN's coverage missed the mark. Clark wasn't the next face of basketball because she fit into some cookie-cutter narrative. She was the next big thing because she made incredible plays look easy and played with a confidence that didn't require media fanfare to feel justified. The attempts by the network to box her in didn't sit right with the viewers who had been watching her redefine what's possible on the court. They wanted the unfiltered version of Caitlin Clark, not the polished, overly produced segments that ESPN delivered. To make matters worse for ESPN, Clark isn't one to shy away from speaking her mind. In interviews, she's refreshingly candid, often laughing off attempts to sensationalize her rivalries or make her wins seem like part of some bigger narrative. She has repeatedly stated that she's just out there to play her game. It's not that she doesn't care about the spotlight. She's just not interested in the kind of spotlight that turns athletes into caricatures. And therein lies the crux of the problem. ESPN's tried and true methods of covering sports stars don't work when the star in question refuses to play it along. One instance that perfectly illustrates this dynamic occurred during a post-game interview after one of Clark's standout performances. The ESPN interviewer pushed a narrative about an on-court rivalry, clearly trying to stir the pot and spark a conversation about tension between Clark and another player. Clark, with a slight smirk, brushed it off, saying something to the effect of, "We're just out there playing ball." The interviewer tried to circle back to the question, but Clark's answer didn't change. She wasn't giving them the drama they wanted, and it was painfully clear. This moment went viral not just because Clark had shut down the question, but because it highlighted the growing chasm between how ESPN was covering her and how she was actually living her career. The network was trying to tell one story, and Clark was living another. In their bid to make her the subject of their next big sports saga, ESPN had missed the point entirely. Caitlin Clark didn't need their storyline. Her play spoke louder than any scripted drama ever could. ESPN media has long held sway over how sports stories are told, but Caitlin Clark represents a shift in that power. Her rise has been powered more by her actual performance and less by the media machine. This new age of athlete, a generation that grew up with social media, where fans have direct access to their favorite players without the filter of a network, means that athletes like Clark can shape their own narratives. They don't need ESPN's storytelling to reach their audience, and Clark is living proof of that. It wasn't just her ability to drain three-pointers from absurd distances or make flashy plays that won fans over. It was her whole approach to the game. Clark plays with joy and intensity, showing a rare combination of competitive spirit and lightheartedness that makes her both an imposing player and a likable figure. She's the kind of athlete that makes you smile when you watch her. She doesn't need to act tough or pretend she's something she's not. And perhaps that's what ESPN failed to understand. Their coverage, overly polished and formulaic, missed the raw energy that makes Caitlin Clark so special. Clark's impact on women's basketball is undeniable, and she's done it by being authentically herself. She hasn't sought the media spotlight or tried to mold her image to fit the standard of what a sports star should look like. She's just played her game, and in doing so, she's brought attention to the sport in a way that feels organic. ESPN's attempts to control the narrative around her have been futile because, at the end of the day, it's not about what they say, it's about what fans see. And what they see in Caitlin Clark is an athlete who's rewriting the script simply by showing up and playing. ESPN got exposed because they misread the moment. They treated Clark like just another rising star they could shape into a headline-grabbing personality. But Clark isn't interested in being the next story. She's interested in being the best at what she does. And she's proving that she doesn't need the media to dictate how her career unfolds. It's a lesson for ESPN and other media outlets that the days of athletes being at the mercy of the narrative are over. Players like Caitlin Clark are redefining the game both on and off the court, and they're doing it on their own terms. As the dust settles on this media misstep, the fans' voices become louder. They see the real Caitlin Clark, the one who drops 30-footers without blinking, who plays with grit, but doesn't take herself too seriously. She's the athlete who shrugs off the hype and just gets down to business. And if ESPN wants to stay relevant, they might have to take a page out of her playbook, cut the theatrics, and focus on what really matters: the game. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.